Americans consumed a record-breaking 6.8 pounds of butter per person last year. That's nearly 7 sticks of butter for every man, woman, and child in this country. But here's the thing nobody's talking about. Half the products sitting in your dairy aisle are not even real butter. And the ones that are, most of them are cutting corners in ways that would make your grandmother cry into her biscuit dough. So which brands are lying to your taste buds and which ones actually deserve a spot in your fridge? Country Crock has been fooling American families since the 1980s. It sat on kitchen counters in practically every household during the Clinton administration, and a lot of people still grab it out of pure muscle memory. But here is the dirty truth your childhood did not tell you. Country Crock is not butter. Never was. It is a vegetable oil spread made primarily from soybean oil, and the ingredient list reads more like a chemistry textbook than a recipe. We are talking palm oil, canola oil, water, salt, and a parade of emulsifiers and preservatives that have no business being anywhere near your toast. But here is what really gets me. Leave Country Crock on your counter for a few hours and watch what happens. It turns into this weird, gelatinous, mayo-like blob that does not resemble anything close to butter anymore. Real butter softens gracefully. Country Crock has an identity crisis. Dietitians have actually called out tub-based spreads like Country Crock for being loaded with unhealthy oils that only exist to make the product easier to spread. So you are sacrificing real butter flavor for the convenience of not waiting 5 minutes for a stick to soften. That is like trading your steak for a Hot Pocket because it heats up faster. At around $3 to $4 a tub, you are paying real butter prices for something that is scientifically engineered to taste like a memory of butter. Your morning toast deserves better than a science experiment, folks. But Country Crock isn't the only imposter hiding in plain sight. I can't believe it's not butter basically told you what it is right there in the name, and people still bought it thinking they were getting something close to the real thing. Spoiler alert, you can absolutely believe it's not butter. One bite and there's zero confusion. This spread is made from a blend of vegetable oils including palm fruit, soybean, and canola, plus a list of additives like soy lecithin, natural flavors, vinegar, and beta-carotene for that fake sunny color. The ingredients are slightly simpler than some other spreads, sure, but simpler. Garbage is still garbage when you're comparing it to a product that should only contain cream and salt. And the reviews tell the real story. Consumers consistently say it tastes exactly like what it is: imitation butter that's trying way too hard. It's the knockoff handbag of the dairy aisle. For anyone who grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, this brand rode the wave of anti-fat hysteria that convinced America butter was the enemy. Well, it turns out the trans fats in margarine and spreads were actually worse for your heart than the saturated fat in real butter ever was. Science did a full U-turn, but I can't believe It's Not Butter is still sitting on shelves pretending the 90s never ended. Speaking of relics from the margarine era, Imperial has been parked in grocery store coolers since forever, mostly because it costs next to nothing. But here is what most people do not realize: Imperial is straight-up vegetable oil spread, not butter. Not even close. The ingredients include soybean oil, water, whey, and a cocktail of additives like potassium sorbate, calcium disodium, EDTA, and distilled monoglycerides. Those sound like things you would find in a chemistry lab, not on your dinner table. And the taste matches the ingredient list. Reviewers consistently describe it as more oil than butter flavor. It is cheap, yes, and it technically works as a cooking fat. But so does motor oil, and you would not spread that on a biscuit. For older Americans on fixed incomes who reach for Imperial because the price is right, here is the uncomfortable math. You are saving $1 or $2 per purchase, but getting zero butter flavor and questionable ingredients. One stick of real butter at roughly the same price will give you actual dairy flavor and fewer ingredients. Sometimes the cheapest option costs you more in the long run, especially when it costs you the pleasure of actually tasting your food. Blue Bonnet is another budget brand that a lot of Americans grew up with, and it is riding that nostalgia straight to the checkout counter. But nostalgia is a terrible reason to buy a food product, especially when that product has all the flavor of a faded photograph. Blue Bonnet is margarine. The stick version is made with a blend of vegetable oils, and independent taste tests describe it as slightly salty, but otherwise completely forgettable. Like, aggressively forgettable. One tester said it tasted like it was dreaming of one day having a flavor someone remembers. Here is the creepy part. Leave a Blue Bonnet stick on your kitchen counter for hours and it holds its shape like a yellow statue. Sharp edges, a perfect rectangle, zero softening. Real butter responds to room temperature because it is made of cream. Blue Bonnet does not budge because it is made of processed oils engineered for shelf stability, not for your taste buds. At under $2 a box, it is the cheapest option on most shelves. But when you are buying something that tastes like nothing and behaves like plastic, you are not saving money. You are paying for the privilege of disappointment. Now here's where it gets interesting, because our next brand actually is real butter. Great Value, Walmart's store brand, checks the basic boxes. It contains cream and salt. It is USDA grade AA. On paper, it looks fine, but in practice, shoppers have been noticing something is off. Reports of inconsistent quality have been popping up for years, with bakers complaining about cookies that crumble when they never did before, and home cooks noticing an off flavor that comes and goes depending on when and where you buy it. Here is why. Nobody actually knows who makes Great Value butter. Walmart keeps its suppliers secret, but evidence points to multiple manufacturers depending on the region. In 2025, a TikTok user opened a sealed box of Land O'Lakes butter and found Great Value sticks inside, suggesting they may share production facilities. Another user found Blue Bonnet packaging inside Great Value boxes. When your butter is being manufactured in a mystery factory that might be switching suppliers on a whim, consistency goes out the window. You might get a decent batch one month and a watery mess the next. For something as fundamental as butter, that kind of Russian roulette is not worth the savings. Land O'Lakes is the most popular butter brand in America, and honestly, that is the problem. When you are the default choice for 300 million people, you are optimizing for volume, not excellence. Founded in 1921 by Minnesota dairy farmers, Land O'Lakes built its reputation on quality and uniformity. But somewhere between then and now, the quality part started slipping, while the uniformity stayed exactly the same, uniformly average. Multiple consumers have reported changes in water content over recent years, with butter sputtering more in pans during sautéing and bakers noticing their toffee will not set properly anymore. One user tested it by leaving butter on the counter overnight and found noticeable water pooling in the dish. That is a red flag, folks. More water means less butter fat, and less butter fat means less flavor and worse performance in your cooking. And then there is the ingredient list. Land O'Lakes unsalted butter contains natural flavors, which sounds innocent but is actually a blend of lactic acid and diacetyl added to compensate for the fact that their sweet cream churning process does not develop much flavor on its own. Real cultured butters develop that flavor naturally over time. Land O'Lakes takes a shortcut and adds it from a bottle. At around $5, you are paying the same as legitimately better options while getting a product that multiple taste tests rank as decent but unremarkable. It is the participation trophy of butter. Smart Balance has been marketing itself as the heart-healthy butter alternative for years, and plenty of health-conscious shoppers have fallen for the pitch. But flip that container over and read the ingredients. You will find a blend of palm fruit, canola, soybean, olive, and flax oils, plus pea protein, natural flavor, sunflower lecithin, vitamin A, and other additives. That is not butter. That is not even close to butter. That is an oil smoothie that has been whipped into submission and dyed yellow. The whole selling point is the omega-3 fatty acids and the lower saturated fat content. And sure, on paper that sounds great, but you are replacing a simple whole food that humans have been eating for thousands of years with a highly processed blend of industrial seed oils. The flavor reflects that processing. It tastes manufactured, like something designed in a lab to approximate butter without actually being butter. For folks genuinely concerned about heart health, a tablespoon of real butter fits into most dietary frameworks just fine. You do not need a Frankenstein spread to manage your health. You just need portion control, and real food. Kroger's spreadable butter with olive oil and sea salt rounds out our avoid list, and it represents a bigger problem with store-brand butter blends in general. This product comes in a tub, which should be your first warning sign. Taste testers describe it as having a pasty, pale, almost off-white color that makes you question whether it should even be categorized as butter. The flavor lacks any depth whatsoever, and the texture feels disturbingly similar to margarine, despite the word butter being right there on the label. At nearly $5 for a tub, you are paying the same as premium butter brands for a product that cannot hold a candle to any of them. The olive oil is supposed to be a selling point, but it just dilutes what little butter flavor exists. This is a pattern across grocery store butter blends. They mix in cheaper oils to cut costs, label it as butter, and hope you do not notice. For that price, you could be buying butter that actually tastes like butter. Makes sense, right? Now, let us talk about the brands that actually earn their shelf space and every penny of your hard-earned money. Kerrygold is the gold standard, and I mean that literally. Crack open a package of Kerrygold pure Irish butter, and the first thing you will notice is that deep golden yellow color that looks like concentrated sunshine. That is not dye. That color comes from keratin in the grass that Irish cows eat year-round, and it is your visual confirmation that this butter came from animals that actually live outside. Kerrygold contains 82% butter fat compared to the 80% minimum that most American butters barely hit. That extra 2% changes everything. The texture is creamier, the flavor is richer, and it performs noticeably better in baking. Blind taste tests consistently rank Kerrygold at or near the top. Testers describe it as balanced, intensely buttery, and having a flavor that develops as you eat it. One tester said they could taste the hills of Ireland. That is not marketing fluff. That is grass-fed dairy doing what it is supposed to do. At around $6 for 8 ounces, yes, it costs more than Land O'Lakes or Great Value. But consider what you are getting: 2 ingredients, cream and salt, from grass-fed cows, with no natural flavors, no fillers, and no mystery factory swaps. Your cookies will taste better. Your toast will taste better. Your entire kitchen will smell better. And the difference is maybe $2 more than the brand that is letting you down right now. For a product you use every single day, that is probably the best food investment you can make. But what if you want grass-fed quality from American farms? Vital Farms pasture-raised butter is the answer, and it quietly does something that almost no other American butter brand can match. Their butter comes from family-owned dairy farms where cows graze freely on pasture, and the breed matters here. Vital Farms sources primarily from Jersey and Guernsey cows, heritage breeds known for producing richer, higher-fat milk. The result is a butter with 85% butter fat. That is not a typo, and it is higher than most European-style butters and significantly higher than standard American butter. The ingredient list is exactly 2 items: cream and sea salt. No natural flavors, no lactic acid injections, no diacetyl shortcuts. The deep yellow color tells you the cows were eating real grass, not sitting in a feedlot being fed grain. Taste testers describe it as pleasantly creamy with a nostalgic quality, like the butter your grandparents might have churned themselves. It will not blow your mind with bold flavor the way Kerrygold does, but it performs beautifully in baking thanks to that sky-high butterfat content. At roughly $5 to $6 for 8 ounces, it is competitively priced with Kerrygold while supporting American family farms. For folks who want to keep their butter dollars domestic without sacrificing quality, Vital Farms is the obvious play. And finally, if you want the best balance of quality, taste, and value, Tillamook Extra. Creamy butter deserves a permanent spot in your refrigerator. Tillamook is a farmer-owned cooperative based in Oregon that has been making dairy products since 1909. That farmer-owned part matters because it means the people making the product are the same people raising the cows. There is no corporate middleman squeezing profit out of your butter quality. Tillamook's extra creamy line uses a higher butterfat content than standard American butter, and taste tests consistently praise it for having a surprisingly rich, almost caramelly flavor that works beautifully whether you are spreading it on sourdough or folding it into pie crust. It delivers a premium experience at a mid-range price point, usually around $4 to $5. That puts it cheaper than Kerrygold and Vital Farms while delivering flavor that multiple blind taste tests rank right alongside those premium options. Now here is what really matters when you are standing in that dairy aisle staring at 2 dozen options. Real butter has 2, maybe 3 ingredients: cream, salt, and occasionally cultures. If the label lists anything beyond that, put it back. If it says spread or blend or comes in a tub, walk away. The difference between a $4 stick of mediocre butter and a $6 stick of genuinely excellent butter is roughly the price of a gas station coffee. Your body processes about 6.5 pounds of this stuff every year. Don't you think those pounds should actually taste like something worth eating?